What's going on? And welcome to the Creative Factor podcast, where we help business-minded content creators build brands with purpose and passion. I'm the host that loves you the most, Ozeal. And today we have a phenomenal guest in the building. And check this out. Imagine that having the courage, my fellow creator, to leave behind that stable full-time job to pursue your true passion, that big leap that many dream of, but a lot don't take that big leap, right? They're afraid to make that transition. And I get it. When I was digging and I got hit with this jolt of inspiration, and I reached out to this brother because I was like, look, we need somebody like this to talk about what it's like to make that big leap of faith. So today, we're joined by someone who not only made that leap, but who is betting on himself and taking his creator brand to the next level. Creator Factor fam, let's welcome none other than my man, my boy, Cam James in the building. Cam, ¿qué onda, hermano? ¿Cómo estás?
What's good, man? I appreciate you having me on in the first place, bro.
Brother, listen, man, but I'm hitting you with the Spanish because my
I
boy,
see.
I heard, hey, papá, ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué tal?
Look, I wish I was fluent, right? ¿Qué tal? I wish I was fluent, but like literally YouTube came in and knocked me off my Spanish horse. I got to get back on it. So I appreciate you though, keeping me on my toes.
I paid attention, man. I saw the video and I saw that you were teaching yourself how to speak Spanish. I was like, I'm gonna test him. I'm gonna get him on the podcast.
I was on it when the year started. Like I was on it. I was learning on Babbel. Like I had a glossary of terms built out, like the whole nine. And then YouTube came in and just derailed me entirely. So
yeah, just took a lot of your time.
Full time. I'm going back to learning Spanish again. So keep me on my toes. I appreciate it.
You know what, man? There's a really good app called Duolingo. Ever heard of that?
That was the first one I ever tried, and I actually prefer Babbel so far.
I haven't heard that one. Okay.
Yeah, we'll compare and contrast for sure.
So I'm gonna bring you back. I'm gonna bring you back in a few months. We're gonna do it all in Spanish, right? So I got you.
100%. We got to do it.
No pressure. I got you, man.
No pressure.
Well, listen, man. As I mentioned in the intro, brother, like I'm really happy to have you on the podcast. So I'm going to share, just to kind of give our listeners and everybody watching on YouTube some context. And I believe I shared this with you, but I was going for a walk, and I remember I was going through a really interesting time in my life where I'm a podcast consultant, right? And I do coaching, and I have a community here in Houston. And I was walking, and it was just this weird moment, Cam, where I was just like, all right, man, what's the next move? Because I was tired of the hamster wheel, the rat race of, one client on, one client off, just being a consultant, just being that rat race. I got burned out a bit, man. And it was really tough. And I started questioning myself about where I need to focus on as a content creator, and how can I serve my community the best. And I was just like in a weird, space, man. And a friend of mine out of the blue said, yo, peep this video. And I clicked on the video and I watched it. And I'm like, man. And then I watched it again. You probably got about maybe like 10 views, 10 from me. I watched it again, and I'm going to make sure that we link it up in the show notes. The video is titled, Quit That Job, It's Costing You Everything. And that's the video that really resonated with me. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm going to reach out to this brother. I'm going to see, hey, Cam, would you be open to being on the podcast? And I appreciate you, man. You said yes, and here we are. So again, thank you, man, for being on the show, man.
No, appreciate you. Appreciate you. You even asking. Anyone showing interest in me talking to my camera is always very flattering to me, and it's an honor to even be half of an inspiration to people out there trying to do what I do.
And there's a common correlation between, you and I. You went from, spoken word to being an MC to finding a love for the camera. And I also went through growing up in hip hop culture, being a B-boy, being an MC for hip hop band, and then transitioning outside after that phase was over, getting into podcasts and being a creator. So I felt like I was like, oh man, that's my twin right there. We
Yeah.
kind of have the same kind of journey.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about that, man. Talk to me a little bit about like that transition, man. Like obviously, you're a bona fide creative, but if you can kind of give us a little bit of context, man, where that spoken word went from MCing, doing the camera, and then to everything that you're currently doing now.
For sure, man. It all started with just a love of words for me. Like I started
Mm,
off devouring a bunch of books as a kid. My dad pushed me into that early, and just reading all the time. I can literally rattle off all my favorite like childhood authors and books to this day. But like what that did for me was greatly accelerate my reading level, greatly pushed me past the English comprehension and reading level of all my peers, even in school. And so I was like a stellar English student, and I needed more channels to express myself through. And I found myself daydreaming in class, being bored in class, and also just drifting towards writing poetry because
mm,
that's a more exciting thing to do with words than just read them all day. So that was just my first step up. And to be completely honest, jumping into poetry was initially for women. That's just point blank. Period. I let chicks dig poetry. So at least back then, it was
that's
Facebook note. You remember Facebook notes? Like
yep, yep.
that was how it started for me. So that's how I'm dating myself a little bit there. But Facebook notes is how it got popping for me. And then I realized pretty rapidly that I had a talent at rhyming words in clever ways and unique
Mm,
ways. And then from there, I just started performing spoken word. So it went from the page to the stage pretty much immediately once I got to college. And I was lucky to do that around campus, do that around Atlanta. I went to Georgia Tech, by the way. So do that around campus and around Atlanta. And Georgia Tech actually happened to have the first ever on the campus spoken word competition when I was in my junior year. And so I joined that. And the thing that differentiated me from the other participants in this contest was the rest of them were poets, right? In the traditional sense, they were like abstract poets. So they were talking all that like high up in the clouds, abstract imagery type stuff. I sound like a rapper, like an a cappella rapper when I do poetry. And that was what brought the power. That and quite
interesting.
fortunately, genetically, my voice. I've been given a pretty powerful voice. So that combined with being a rapper and amongst a bunch of abstract poets made me stand out tremendously. So I won that competition. First time I ever got money for doing something to do with word manipulation and
Hmm.
wordplay, right? So that awakened something in me like, oh, I can potentially do this for a living one day. And not only that, but some friends of mine on campus who did make like dorm room mixtapes kind of heard my performance and brought me in with them to do like experiment with rap and do dorm room mixtapes and start to make songs and taught me how to use Pro Tools and taught me how to use studio equipment for the first time. So they very much got me on my start. And once I realized I'd done a few songs with them, like campus music videos, that type of thing.
Hmm.
And then I rapidly realized that I was kind of good at rapping and I could potentially do this solo and start to make my own things. I had a lot of ideas. And yeah, fast forwarding through that, like my music career became a real thing. Before I knew it, it was viable. I had fans, I had people listening to my albums, and I was able to land on festival stages, A3C, South by Southwest, everything in between.
Wow.
And I also was able to land songs on TV shows. And that was a byproduct of being at South by Southwest in the first place. So my whole career is just things stacking on top of other things to lead to further accomplishments. And once I got a string of those under my belt, I'm established, I'm making albums, I'm getting songs on TV shows. I'm a legitimate amateur rapper at that point. And from there, it was just like, how do I execute my vision to the utmost of my ability and get it exactly right, exactly what's in my head as far as music videos. And that took me to shooting those myself. I'm very much a DIY person. And if
Yeah.
somebody I hire can't do it or they cost too much, I'm going to do it myself. And so like that's where that started, from literally like a photography Canon camera, and I elevated from that to a DSLR, and I elevated from that to the movie camera I own now, and I put all my day job money from working at these corporate jobs into every step of this process and buying these cameras and buying the equipment. I have a whole like wagon full of film equipment sitting in my room with me right now. And so like that was just years of working day jobs and throwing all the money I could at my home studio, at my film camera, and working for clients around the world. On the music side, I was doing commissions for producers in Europe
Mm.
and doing custom songs on request on Fiverr. And then I graduated to Sound Better from there. And I was perfectly rated on both sites, and that got my rep out there even more and got more opportunities to come to me. And then on the film side, I'm doing running gun event coverage and recaps for people. I'm making music videos for other artists, and that helped me hone my chops on that end. I started an indie record label, and I shot visuals for our artists that we ended up signing. There was 2 R&B singers. So just everything I did along this path to YouTube was just developing a skill,
Yeah.
trying and trying and trying and failing a lot until I got great at that individual skill, and then combining all of it into being very fortunate to combine all of it into something like YouTube that lets me use literally every single thing I'm good at in one spot. And so I don't know if you want me to go into YouTube and how it started right now, but that's what's next in the story.
What's really interesting, man, is I think when you start connecting the dots going backwards, start looking at your past life and all the things that you did, acknowledging as you mentioned, stacking the different forms of creative expressions, and as creatives, we don't know where that's going to lead us, but that ultimately leads us to another form of creative expression, which now what you're doing with being a full-time content creator on YouTube,
Mhm.
uh, blending the different skill sets that you have cultivated throughout these years as a communicator, right? Through being an MC, right? To understanding the importance of the zag when everybody's zigging, like adding your own style to the artwork that you're putting out there, and then obviously the videography skill set of on a video platform, right? So it's like all that just culminates and converges into a spot where it's just like this beautiful blend of everything that you have cultivated. And the way I'm sharing is because I see myself also in that similar journey. I think a lot of creators, and a challenge for creators who are watching, listening, is start connecting the dots going backwards and just look at that, and you'll be surprised. Like, it's pretty amazing to see all the things that you stack up throughout the years that will ultimately land you to the next thing. It's just this beautiful
100%.
like flow. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm hearing from you. All right, man. So let's talk about YouTube. So you transitioned, through all these different phases of your creative life, and you ended up creating content on YouTube.
Mhm.
Before I ask you this question, let me ask you, what did the early stages of Cam James YouTube look like? Were you just kind of sharing video content that you were producing? What did that look like? Curious.
So yeah, before the series that most people discovered me on, I was a musician on YouTube, right? I
Okay.
was just Cam James on YouTube. I was putting my music videos out. I was making original content that was like short snippets showing
Okay.
the behind the scenes.
And
Whatever
what year was this, Cam? Like, more or less.
these were, I've been making videos, like music videos, dating back to at least 2014, 2015.
Posting on YouTube, you mean?
Posted
That's
on
what okay.
YouTube. My oldest music video is probably dated that far back, if not further. But I'm pretty sure it was around 2014 or so when I started publishing videos. And other people were shooting them for me back then, and then I started
Mm,
progressively shooting them myself and developing my own style.
mm,
So that was the early. Is mostly like freestyle videos, music videos, behind the scenes content, just anything I could think of, like making of the album content,
mhm.
interviewing myself and talking
So
about the
you were
song.
documenting back then, huh?
I was like, because as a musician, there's like being a musician is like 5 industries in one, and you have to be a content creator, especially nowadays,
Yeah.
to stand out. And so I obviously got on that around the same time everybody else did, with the explosion of Instagram, the explosion of
Mhm.
YouTube, the explosion of Snapchat, and all these types of things. All these places you can market yourself.
Yeah.
TikTok,
Yeah. TikTok. Yeah.
the platforms I hate, but I have to be you don't have a choice but to be a part of them as a musician. So I just tried to make the best content I could that would convince people to give my music a shot. So that was the early stages of my YouTube.
Hmm. Let's transition into what I really wanted to talk about with for our creators. that transition of taking that big leap, man. You know, take us to that moment, brother, where you know you decided to take that leap and quit your day job. And I'm curious to know, like, what was the tipping point to say, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and bet on myself and go all in as a full-time content creator. Take us there.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll start with what led to the series in the first place, and
Mhm.
that was a desire to stop just doing all these creative things just to get myself paid. Like that was the
Mm,
original impetus. Before Deep Dive started, I made an entire season of a show called Storyline ATL. It has its own YouTube channel, and every episode was platforming a friend of mine or a collaborator of mine and asking them what their purpose or their passion was and kind of following them through a section of their day and making them a mini documentary. And I
mm.
did that 7 times and I called it a season and I just put it out on Storyline ATL. I didn't even attach my name to it. Like I got to a point with all this creation stuff that I
Yeah.
didn't even want I didn't want the acclaim anymore. I didn't want my name to be like attached to everything that I'm doing anymore. It was just how can I use all this stuff I've accumulated and these skills to genuinely give back to the world. And so like that was the first step. And then it was like, okay, I did that. Some people watched it, but not that many. Um, and my friends were very happy. They were very gratified by that. They felt uplifted. They really enjoyed the process. And so next it was like, okay, how do I combine all this? How do I do this for a living, which means I have to make money? And how do I also at the same time find a way to give back to the world and do something genuinely beneficial and not just be another YouTuber trying to suck up brand resources all day talking about bullshit, quite frankly. I don't know if I can cuss on here,
You're good.
yeah, but just putting out, nonsense. And
Yeah.
from there, it was like before I ever took that first step into deep dives, I surveyed the landscape. So I was checking out what people do on YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube content and have for years. So before I ever tried to do this, I've been digesting what other people have put out there and the way they choose to do it. And so I noted a few things. Most YouTubers are sitting inside. They're at a desk, they have a light
Mhm.
on them, or perfect lighting, whatever, or strobe lighting, or just colored lighting, whatever they choose to do. But it's inside, it's curated, and it's very um, easily reproducible and very samey from video to video.
Yeah.
So I noted that. I noted that there was a lot of misinformation on YouTube. There's a lot of people on YouTube who are not citing sources. They're not talking about where they got information from. They're kind of just either ranting or they're
Mhm.
just spreading information with no verification.
Mm.
And I just noticed that there wasn't enough. A lot of people on YouTube, and I'm trying not trying to say this in a non-condescending way. They're just not very good narrators or storytellers. Um, and what I mean specifically by that is redundancy, like repeating themselves over and over again. Um, Not having a solid story arc when they're telling a story
Mhm.
and bringing the listener in with them is kind of just like, here I am, here's my show. Let's like listen to me talk for however long. So
Mhm.
structure was missing.
Structure.
And so I noted these things. I collected all of them and I was like, what can I do that makes me stand out, fills a void that needs to be filled, and also helps these viewers understand the thing I'm
Mhm.
talking about? Not just
Mhm.
talking at them, but having a discussion with them.
Yeah.
And so that was the vision. And that birthed the first episode of Deep Dives. And from there, I got very fortunate in that this topic I decided to cover, which was Black owned multi-level marketing companies, helped that first video go viral. And that is an experience that I guess, I mean, a lot of people have experienced it, but maybe some of your viewers haven't been there before. And it's surreal. I think it's hard to describe especially when your first step into
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
is that successful. And to this day, that video is still powering like monthly views. It's still one of my most popular videos. So that helped launch it. And from the second episode, that's actually when I introduced the branding. It wasn't even called Deep Dives yet. It was just one video I put out there that had a structure. It had the chapter transitions, the music, everything that people would come to love later was
Mhm.
already in place, including the greeting that is on my shirt. And from there, it was like, how do I make this a brand? How do I add a logo? How do I make this marketable and repeatable and
Mm.
familiar? so that people see this and it's like, oh, I'm back in deep dives. I'm comfortable. I like it here. That's what episode 2 was for. And I also had a crucial decision early on. Do I chase that same thing that got me super popular? Or do I diverge and pursue other topics that are important to me instead of just trying to hit that viral button over and over again?
Yeah.
That's a very tough decision. A lot of creators are faced with that when they go viral. Do I just keep doing that and trying to give the audience what they want? In my personal opinion, it's a mistake to try to chase virality and try to do the thing that got you popular. No matter how you try, you're not going to be able to approximate it the same, or you're going to end up getting off track episodes later, or people are going to get bored with it. You're not going to give them what they wanted because you thought they wanted something else. And also, probably the most crucial point, audiences don't know what they want, not fully, until you give them something to make that decision with. And it needs to be something that's innovative and inspiring and engaging. So doing the same thing over and over again, in my opinion, is a mistake. But your structure can stay the same. Your inspiration, your feel, your music, those things can be similar, but change up the topics, change up the approach whenever you can. Continue to innovate. So that's what Deep Dives was. That was Deep Dives. And we're 13 episodes in, but when I quit my job, we were 10. It was after our 10th episode, I believe. And I can double check that, but I'm pretty sure it was after our 10th episode was when I started to make the decision to like, okay, check out the metrics, see how this is going. How much can I realistically earn every month from YouTube?
And Ken, real quick, by that time, were you monetized already?
My monetization story is kind of crazy. That first episode got me monetized in 4 days.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Once I realized,
after one video.
Yeah, one video, I realized, this is viral. I should probably pursue monetization. It took 4 days from when I started the process for them to press the button. And it's funny, I kind of made YouTube do it. It was Christmas Day when I got monetized, so you can imagine they're not paying the most attention to what's going on right now. But what I told them, because they have like on YouTube Studio, they have like a backstage, like contact us type situation. So what I told them was, we're both losing money at this point. Monetize me because it's in your best interest. Like I word for word what I told them. Like this video was viral. I love it. It's getting 20,000 views a day at the time and accelerating from there. What are we doing? I've hit the metrics. I've hit the subscriber count and I've hit the view count, the watch hour count that I needed to be monetized fully. So what are we doing? Like press the button, and then literally the next morning they monetized me, and it was Christmas.
Wow! Listen, you know what's funny about that is that a lot of people always say, man, they don't, people try to contact YouTube. It's like I never get a response. They don't there's nothing. Like the fact that you just go ahead and just email them, they paid attention. It says a lot about them. Yeah, man, because you barely get responses from them, man. It's hard to get through them.
Okay, it's their self-interest. Like YouTube takes 45% of our revenue. So like. If they're losing money, they have a reason to hurry up. So they monetized me in 4 days, and from there it was just off to the races. Now I just need to make content and continue to build this community that I'm building. And so by episode 10, we had at least half of our videos had surpassed 100K within the first 30 days of being out. So we had a track record of being able to bring in the metrics and land the brand sponsors and all that approached me after I hit 25K subscribers.
Cam, before we get to that, man, because you got me thinking about a lot of things now.
Yeah.
Let me stop you right there. What was it when you look back at those videos that got a lot of views and monetized your channel? What was it about those videos you feel that resonated with people? Like what was it? What was the structure like? Was it the format? Was it what happened there? If you had to dissect it,
I can almost tell you verbatim because a lot of my viewers have told me.
Okay.
So they like me as a host. I'm very fortunate in that regard. They like my voice. They like my cadence.
You're a likable guy.
I appreciate that. I try my best. And so one thing they've told me is, yes, they like me as a host. They like that I'm an underrepresented minority, doing things that mostly um, quite frankly, white men are doing
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube, talking about scams, financial education. There's
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of us. Like there's usually you can pick out the biggest, the most prominent black
Mm-hmm.
YouTubers who are doing anything similar to me.
Mm-hmm.
People know their names because there's not that many. So there was a void to fill in that regard. But there's also the structure of it. I use licensed music on my chapter transitions that I just happen to like, and that's a dangerous game in and of itself. But um, I put my love for music. I put my music video direction experience into my videos, so they're not just like you staring at somebody talking, which there's nothing wrong with that. Some of my favorite creators, do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I use a cinema camera. Let's start there. That sets me apart from the get go. My audio was actually kind of rough when I started, but I'm a professional musician, so I figured it out quick. And got there and got to the point where I could use a mic that I'm holding that has no cord attached and has pristine audio outside. And that's a rarity in and of itself as well.
Yeah.
Um, and then just the flow of it. I think the most compelling thing from what people have said and my own personal experience making these is that I'm taking really complex stuff and stuff that's important to people and breaking it down to a point where it's enjoyable to digest.
Mm-hmm.
It's also really easily understood. I'm not like talking above people's heads. My goal is to always break it down. I was a substitute teacher for 10 months when I graduated college. So using those skills to help translate these things
Yeah.
in a way that anybody can understand it and anybody can readily share it. And on top of all that, it's entertaining, man. Like I'm cracking jokes. I'm like talking in the slang that I use every day.
Yeah.
This is not a lecture. It's enjoyable to watch. And that's always my goal, is to have it feel like a conversation as opposed to a lecture. And I think I
Mm.
achieved that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine not too long ago. We're talking about just like, teachers that are most memorable. And I'm like, I really don't. I know I had some teachers back in the day and instructors that were very knowledgeable and great, gave great lectures, but those are not the ones that I remember the most, or the ones that actually made it entertaining and fun and were a little
Yeah.
bit more lighthearted and simplified things were the ones that maybe didn't have the most knowledge, but they made it entertaining. I think that translate into video content creation. It's like it's not so much of like you need to be well versed in everything, but you got to know exactly what you have to know what you're talking about. But it's all about simplifying it and but making it fun, especially for the YouTube audience. So
Yeah.
interesting you said that
This is entertainment at the end of the day.
at the end of the day.
We're entertainers, and it's just taking that entertainment lens and
Mm,
applying it to something that typically isn't very entertaining. Like my theory with doing YouTube about topics like the ones I discuss is that
mm.
there are no boring topics. There's boring presentation.
Ooh, facts. I like that.
Yeah.
So some takeaways here for our viewers and those who are listening to the podcast. Just finding that blue ocean, right? Zag when everybody's zigging, do something different, figure out the things, remix, you bring something different to the table and know that whether it's a podcast or audio, whether it's through a YouTube channel, make it entertaining and fun because at the end of the day, that's what people subscribe to when it comes to just content. It's just something who's fun. If you look at all the major influencers and the people that are doing it, they bring that kind of entertainment aspect to it. Don't just make it all about, even for our educators out there, because I know in the field that I'm in, it's more, education focused, right? But
Mhm.
even that, can we bring flavor? Can we bring style and soul into what we do as an educator, even if it's kind of a topic that may not be as dry? And again, creators, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm glad we talked about that, Cam. We touched on that because I think it's super important, man. It gets overlooked all the time,
It really gets overlooked. It's bigger than. It's also bigger than you as a creator when you're coming to
Yeah.
the table and trying to establish what you're going to do. You have to make stuff that you want to watch first and foremost, but you also
Yeah.
have to step outside yourself and be like, okay, in this section of the script or video, whatever I'm doing, am I boring? Like, am I boring myself? Like, you have to be really blunt with yourself or get other people around you, a team around you that can help you evaluate that. Otherwise, you're wasting your own time, you're wasting your own resources producing
Mm,
stuff that isn't going to retain people, isn't going to that people aren't going to respond to. So you have to be really self-critical, but also honest with how
mm,
you receive feedback and who you're getting it from.
that's right.
That's really, really important.
Well said. Well said. All right, man. Let's get back to quitting the job, man. Let's quit.
Let's go.
Okay,
Let's
so
go.
you.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So
I didn't quite.
no,
Yeah.
this is good. This is good. Hey, listen,
Oh,
I had to dig into it myself because I was
of
like, there's a lot of
course.
good stuff here, man. Good
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
conversation. We're having fun with it.
No doubt.
All right, man. Let's talk about quitting the job. Okay, so you do all the things. You
Yep.
monetize early on after one episode. You're putting out deep dives. You're putting out more content. It's picking up. Now you're like, all right, I'm thinking about quitting this job. I feel like I
Yep.
need to make this big leap. Talk to us about that tipping point, man.
No
What
doubt.
made you? Because again, and I'm saying this again, just to preface, is a lot of content creators when they go all in on content, on being a full-time content creator, they're like, hey, can I really make this a business?
Right.
uh Talk to us a little bit about the mindset kind of going into it and how that was like.
Definitely. So after it became clear from the revenue that it was a possibility for me to quit my job, it just came down to the decision of when.
Mhm.
Um, and I had a plan that I didn't stick with. I had a plan to quit after the summer, like thinking August sometime. I was going to just kind of put out more episodes, get more revenue in, save a little bit of money, and make the jump. And I jumped prematurely. And the reason for that was I have a whole like super detailed spreadsheet with what I've brought in the past and what I'm going to bring in future months based on committed sponsors and things like that. And then just average AdSense revenue from YouTube
Mhm.
and what that adds up to every month. And just deciding, quite frankly, like I had already had a budget before that. So can I cover my basic living expenses
Mhm.
with what I'm earning from YouTube? If the answer is yes, proceed to the next step. Can I have money on top of that besides covering my basic expenses? If the answer is yes, you move on to the next step. And so you have to be very blunt with yourself there as well. Am I kind of just getting by if I quit my job? Or am I able to maintain the standard of living I had before? That's what
Mm.
you should be shooting for at the bare minimum. Like don't struggle unless if you don't have to struggle, don't struggle. I'm
Okay.
never gonna be a person to tell people to just jump without having your ducks in a row.
Mhm.
So the ducks were in a row. The budget
Yeah.
sheet made sense. The money made sense. And what pushed me to quit early was somebody pissed me off. Um, quite frankly, like to be honest with you,
You got to go back and think that, did you thank him or her? You got to go back and say thank you, because I
man,
mean that was a push that you need.
honestly, yeah, I haven't thanked them yet. I was more focused on chunking the deuces and keeping it moving. But I quit based on like I worked at an ad agency, and I've worked at ad agencies for years. Like
Okay.
that's my job outside of this, and it's beneficial, of course, because I don't need a manager now because I worked at ad agencies and I know how brands work.
That
So I talk
experience.
to
Yeah.
them myself.
Hmm.
But coming from that world, there was like a layer of people between me and the clients. I work with big apparel clients. I don't work for them anymore, so I can say names. I work for Aeropostale and Nautica and clients like that. And so we're just taking money from them and pushing it elsewhere. That's what marketing is. But there's a layer of people between me and the client that are responsible for keeping those clients happy, and they're called client services. And I'm not talking bad on them. I'm just saying that sometimes their communication was a bit off in that I felt disrespected, I felt rushed, I felt criticized overly, etc. So yeah, there's just one of those times where, we all have, for those of us with very demanding day jobs, there's going to be times where you make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I've made plenty of mistakes at my day jobs. Whether I'm overly focused on music, that's happened before. Stayed up all night, late for work the next day. Like I've
Uh-huh.
had plenty of things
Uh,
people could legitimately criticize me for. And this was a mistake that I made, but it was like, a spreadsheet, 40 cells I'm responsible for. One of them is wrong. And it's like, I'm getting the heat on me come Monday. And I'm doing this work on Sunday, by the way. Choosing to step up and do it on Sunday instead of crunching on Monday to do it, just to make sure I'm ahead of time with my assignments. So I'm going above and beyond. And I make one small mistake and I get lit up. They're like, yo, well, let's have a meeting to talk about how to prevent these errors in the future. And I'm like, everybody on the team has made these errors in the past. Why are you singling me out? And so it was just one straw too many. Like
Mm.
it had happened many, many times before where I felt disrespected, I felt overly criticized. And at the end of the day, this isn't what I want to do forever anyway. So I've had one foot out the door for months. And when that happened, I declined the meeting and I just submitted my letter of resignation on the spot.
That was it.
That was it. And I did give them 2 weeks. I didn't flip a table, but I decided to get out of there. And that 2 weeks actually changed to one. And I realized that I literally could not afford to even give them another week and take that away from the time I had to focus on YouTube. That's the point I was at. Our channel grew so fast in the first 4 months of us doing this that every hour I spent doing my day job was actively hurting the amount, like taking away from the amount of attention. So back to the topic of the video, what it was costing. It was costing everything. Like I could not afford to give them another hour of my time beyond that 1 week of courtesy time after I quit. So that's
When you
ultimately,
when you quit, Cam,
yeah,
how did it feel?
man. I've quit jobs before, one job before. So there's nothing like the first time, but this felt different because this felt like forever. Like stepping away from the 9 to 5 forever. The first time I co-founded a startup, so that felt like forever at the time too. But unfortunately, I had to come back to the 9 to 5 world briefly. After that, startup imploded, but I'll be telling that story soon. um,
Cam James, by the way, Cam James, check out the YouTube channel.
Yes. So yeah, this second time, man, it felt like a massive weight being removed from my shoulders. I'm sure a lot of people who have day jobs, which is most of us, can relate to having this cloud of anxiety over your head, just kind of following you around. Am I going to make a mistake? Am I going to get fired for no reason? Like that's happened to me before. What's going to happen next week? Am I going to be able to pay my bills if I lose this paycheck? Like it's constantly hovering over you. And of course, I'm jumping into uncertainty as a creator too, but it's uncertainty that I control.
Yeah.
And that's a completely different equation than what I'm coming from. So it felt incredible, to answer your question.
So you were talking about the anxiety and feeling like that. I mean, I can relate to that. And I think a lot of creators can relate to that. One of the biggest things that I often hear from a lot of creators is like, man, I want to, it's just this job and, I'm juggling, I'm trying to do this thing. And it's just this kind of constant tug of war between, this and that, the creative pursuit. And then, trying to make sure that you're meeting quota and you're taking care of work. And then you start looking at time, you're like, man, all my time is being taken. But I get it, there's seasons for everything where we do need a day job to be, as you mentioned, right? You're not being financially, irresponsible. We got to take care of that.
Exactly.
But just really understanding, having a strategy, in mind. And it sounds like you were from what I'm hearing from you, you were very financially responsible. I mean, obviously you had a spreadsheet, you kind of knew what was coming in, what was coming out. And as you mentioned, I love that you said, hey, listen, I figured out, what was baseline. And then also what's the little bit of extra past baseline. So I feel like you were pretty strategic and intentional about curating this lifestyle early on for that big leap. And a lot of creators really don't think about that. So that being said, what other like strategies would you say, man? Like, that a lot of creators who are looking to make that transition, let's say, 6 months to a year, or maybe a couple of years from now, like what should we do now to start prepping for that transition, that big leap for being a full-time creator?
Excellent question. It's about using every day to make a baby step towards making that leap. Like I said, even in the video you mentioned, I was not advocating for people to just leave. I was very clear that this plan you put in place might take weeks, months, years, but you have to have a plan. You have to start somewhere. So do what I did. Survey the landscape. Look at the people who are already doing what you want to do. Interview them. Ask them. Like, reach out to me. Email me. I'm responsive. Like, people will email me all the time about random stuff, and they're like, I don't know if you'll see this. I don't know if you'll help me out, but I always do if they're sincere and they're like not crazy. Then yeah, I absolutely will spend time answering your question because I remember being in your shoes. So Reach out to the people who are already doing what you want to do. Ask them questions. Watch to see the way they do things, and look forward into the future and try to map out what your business looks like once you're doing this full time. If you think you're going to jump and just kind of like make videos whenever you want to and have no structure and have no planning and have no calendar or teammates one day that you need to get even more organized for because they're contractors and you have to pay taxes. You have another thing coming, man. Like, this is a legitimate business and you're starting a business when you jump into doing this full time. So you have to have everything organized as far as what's my workflow going to be? How good am I at all the buckets of things I need to be good at to do this? I found out doing YouTube that I needed to become a better editor, and I did that professionally. I was a professional videographer, and I still needed to become a better editor, a more effective and efficient editor in order to keep up with my publishing schedule once I jumped full time. I'm putting out a 25 plus minute documentary every 2 weeks and videos in between. So you can't do that if you're taking 4 or 5 days to edit a video. It's not possible. So I had to become a better. I had to go back to square one and study how to
back to the
edit.
lab.
Shortcuts, like keyboard shortcuts. What am I doing wrong? Where are my extra clicks at that I don't need to be making? You need to get analytical with how your business works, how your content is created, and make sure that you can streamline that and speed it up. Because I'll tell you from experience, when sponsors come knocking, you're in a little bit of a dilemma if you're moving slow, because they are knocking at your door trying to give you money to put an ad or whatever it is, an affiliate program, whatever it is, into your next video. And if you're only producing 2 per month, which is what I was doing, you're leaving money on the table, quite frankly. And so now we're talking business. Now we're talking, how do I increase my output so that I can increase my revenue and build my team and give back to my business, et cetera. Like, if you're not bringing in revenue, you're not able to reinvest in yourself. It's not only about getting rich. Like, that's not what all YouTubers are doing this for, or content creators. Like, all the money I've made so far has gone directly back into my business. I don't care about being rich. I'm not on here to stunt on y'all. I'm trying to make a living and build an infrastructure that helps me keep doing this as long as I want to do it. That makes sense.
What have been like the biggest lessons that you've learned post leaving the job? Like, now that like some things that you did not expect, unexpected challenges that you faced since leaving the job and being a full-time creator?
Man. So I come from the world of arguing with people on the internet. I was doing that for years before YouTube. Years. Like, I'm an OG Twitter veteran, Facebook veteran of just pointless arguments with random people. And I stopped doing that to do this series. It was my way of like bringing the facts to the table. And now let's argue about something factual instead of just tossing insults at each other.
Yeah.
So coming from that world, one thing I'll tell every content creator is that you have to have thick skin, of course.
Yeah, especially on YouTube, huh?
Man, I've been called everything you can possibly think of, and it happens fairly regularly. Some people are going to be irritated that you're even successful in the first place. Other people will be irritated that you said something they disagree with, or you took a stance that they disagree with. Yeah. I've been very open about my social views on my YouTube channel, and that there's some blowback from all directions when you do that type of thing too. So if you plan on being your authentic self, especially, be prepared for the blowback, but also be open to critique and feed into what feeds back into you. And what I mean by that is the overwhelming majority of my subscriber base is very positive and very sharp and very intelligent. And they give me detailed feedback, and they're praising what we're doing here all the time. So I choose more often than not to reply to them and pour into them and spend my time replying to them and like being positive in my comment section. And what that's done is create a very, very positive atmosphere in general around my channel. There are no dog fights in my comment section because I don't allow it. Quite frankly, it's up to
you. Set the tone, right? Yeah.
You set the tone, and when they know you're in the comment section and you're gonna reply to them, it changes things.
Yeah.
I spent hours on hours in my first easily 10 to 12 videos replying to almost everyone that commented. And I'm talking thousands of
I noticed
comments.
that. Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah. And that's overtime. That's above and beyond, but it's so necessary because this is
Community, right?
all this
Building
is
community.
that's your job. Like if this is your job now,
That's right.
that community is what's allowing you to do this professionally in the
That's
first
right.
place.
That's right.
So if you're not pouring into them, if you're not inspiring positivity, they can turn on you, man.
Mm.
Like this is a very delicate thing, producing entertainment for essentially strangers. So if you're not trying to change the fact that they're strangers and get closer to them and
Yeah.
develop those bonds, you're putting your business at risk.
Well, I was thinking, Cam, it's no difference than if you just open up a mom and pop brick and mortar a store,
Same.
right? I mean, you still got to take care of your people. You still got to interact in this customer service and what happens. The most successful businesses out there, even the mom and pop,
Yep.
Small business are the ones that take care of their people and they remember them and they go back for the people. So I think that's a really strong correlation connection between there's no difference between having a YouTube channel and taking care of your people versus starting a business in 2024, taking care of your
100%.
people. It matters.
It matters like more than I could ever say.
That's
And I'd be
right.
remiss to not take an opportunity to acknowledge my one person on my team right now, Naomi
Mm.
Stryker, incredible researcher. They've been just a huge help to providing the foundational research for me to build on top of. And so building a team is also crucial. Like you have to
It
be
is.
able to identify talent when you see it. There will be a lot of people volunteering to help you, but you have to have a vision for who you want to help you, what type of person you want on your team, and to seek those people out and be professional with how you deal with them and how you establish that working relationship. Because this is, yeah, the backbone of what you eventually build is the people you choose to work with.
That's facts, man. All right, man. I have a few questions before we land the plane. And shout out to team, by the way. Shout out to the whole team.
Yes, sir.
Listen, the business side
Yep.
of Cam James, man. I mean, I know obviously, you get AdSense. What does the business infrastructure look like these days for your brand?
So, yeah, AdSense is a foundational part of just monthly consistent revenue, but there's also sponsor deals. I say that's the
Mhm.
lifeblood of most YouTubers.
Yeah.
You need to be able to attract sponsors. And in my case, I have a certain amount of integrity about who I choose to work with. And that means I told a lot of people no. And that's something that I think is crucial for any creators looking to do this full time. You have to know before you get into this, before they start knocking, preferably
Yeah.
that like who you want to work with, what type of advertisers you would like to partner with, and where your integrity lies on the spectrum. I'm not even here to criticize people who take more, generic advertisers that don't necessarily relate to their content. It is what it is. Not everybody's out here talking about scams. I am, so I can't afford to advertise everything that comes my way. Some people are much more able to do that, and it doesn't create a moral quandary for them. So, but what I will say when they do come knocking, know first off, know your worth.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
there's a lot of questions out there about how to calculate your worth. How do I set my
Right.
rate? And I mean, I can literally get into the equation, but like more high level, the way you set your worth is your past for your recent past
Yeah.
performance on average, and multiply it by whatever CPM or cost per thousand views
That's right.
that you think is fair for where you are in your career at the moment. And I say the range of like $30 to $50 CPMs is normal for
Okay.
advertisers to pay. Uh, go as high as you think you can in the
Yeah.
beginning. You're experimenting, right? And if you negotiate correctly and politely and respectfully, they'll counter with something that fits their budget. And so, but just have a number in mind always and lead with that. And
Mhm.
then establish over time, you'll be able to establish a rate card and send them what your rates are for specific services as you get more confident in what you're going to charge. And now it's gotten to the point with me now where people have signed on, repeat advertisers for one, have signed on to like multi-video deals stretching into like September. We're in June now. So that gave me the security I needed. That happened
Okay.
actually 2 days after I quit. I locked in a
Wow.
6 video deal into September
They
with one.
reached out to you, Cam, or did you?
They reached out to me to
Okay.
they had already advertised with me.
Okay. Okay.
So they come back twice now. And that's a testament to what I'm doing for their business.
Absolutely.
But they've paid a higher rate each time. And so find the right sponsors that you like if you like that rep as a person, that's always a good starting sign. But investigate the company, look into what they do, look into other people they've worked with, and be sure before you jump. Because a thing about YouTube and these contracts that you have to sign with these sponsors is that once it's out there, you can't take it down if you want to get paid. So it has to be up for like a year at minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So like, be sure that you want to commit to this. Be sure that you want to stand behind advertising this company with your whole name and your whole brand.
Mm.
Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a very sticky situation. So, merch, right? I sell T-shirts. I'm wearing one of them. I sell hats and clothes and that type of thing
Okay.
via the YouTube store. There's memberships on YouTube. There's Patreon. So you have multiple revenue streams that you can exploit. But at the end of the day, it's more than just exploiting, right? It's providing a service and providing valuable content that makes people want to support you in the first place. And that's not always easy. You're going to have days where you don't want to make anything. And the schedule says you have to. So get to work.
That's it. That's the clip right there, man. That's it. That's quotable. That's
Yeah.
it. I'm gonna clip that. Listen, man. One of the things that I've noticed about your YouTube channel, and I've been in this space for a minute, and like you, I'm studying what other YouTube educators are putting out there. One of the things is really interesting. I'm gonna get your take on this. When I look at your YouTube channels, it's very unconventional because you see a lot of YouTube educators talking about, well, you got to put you got to have the brand and you got to have the niche, and when you look at your YouTube channel, like musician, filmmaker, human first, I'm an indie musician. None of that says that you talk about spamming and even deep dives. I mean, there's really no messaging that's related to your niche. You do things differently now. When you go to deep dives, you see the content there, and there's again your music and the storyline ATL. It's not like your traditional what all the other people are saying to do. Again, this is your Zag, but I'm curious to get your thoughts, man, on because I know a lot of creators that come to me when I coach is like, yo, Ozeal, I feel like I need a niche. I need to be the the podcast guy, or I need to be the YouTube guy. Talk to us a little bit about like your philosophy on niching and how you kind of done things differently and still manage to monetize and build this audience of yours. So talk to us about that, man.
Yeah, yeah. It's nothing is one size fits all. YouTube is very much a individual endeavor that you need to figure out where you fit into yourself. And for me, I just create things. Like there's no way I could put myself in a niche and be like, yeah, I only talk about financial education. That's the thing. I've gotten recommendations to do that. The partners I've worked with, the network I'm a part of.
Oh, they want you to niche it down? They just
There's
want you to
optimization recommendations, and they're like, yeah, in your description for the channel, you should say, I talk about this, and I've discussed this, and welcome to the home of deep dives. Like they want you to brand it up. But I think I'm branded enough. I think I've made it.
You are the brand. You are the brand.
Yeah, that's the thing. I am the brand, and that's the thing. Like also about YouTube that you find very quickly once you start making content and looking at the metrics come in. Because I've had videos that don't do nearly as well as other videos, and that's something you'll get used to. But one thing you'll notice quickly is that this is very much a one-by-one platform. Like every video stands alone.
Yeah,
it needs to be appealing by itself. It needs to have that punch and that hook that gets people interested in you by itself. It's not it is about your branding. People are going to visit your channel and they're going to discover you that way. And so it needs to be, your playlists need to be organized and all that good stuff. But much more important is behind the scenes. How are you planning out your content? How are you choosing what to talk about? Does it create its own niche in people's minds? When people watch me, I don't need to tell them what my niche is. They just watch 2 episodes in a row and they'll be like, okay, I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to get what he's going for and what his target is and who he's talking to and how he talks to them. Your consistency will inform your viewers about your niche. You don't need to tell them all the time. And that's the thing. it works for other people. I'm not going to tell you not to niche down if you don't, if you feel like you want to. There's channels that name themselves after their niche and they do incredibly. So like my advice is not, does not mean it's the end all be all, but this is who I am. And YouTube is about who you are, not who the rest of these people are. You have to figure that out for yourself.
Cam, if there's, as we land the plane,
Mm-hmm.
if there's one creator factor that every content creator out there watching and listening should learn and master, what would it be?
For those with scripted content, become a better writer. And when I say better, I'm gonna get a very specific detail. Know how to trim the fat, cut off things that don't need to be there. Make your premise very clear, and follow the rest of the video behind that premise and prove out everything you said you were going to talk about in the beginning and in the video. Like there's just a lot of people making things way longer than they need to, getting off point, going off random tangents. And if that's your thing, if you're like, yo, welcome to the tangent channel, like that's fine. You know what I'm saying? But like for most of us, people show up to watch the thing that's in the headline, right? So like focus, learn how to write a script that tells a compelling story, put yourself into your content, because at the end of the day, this is a competition. And I'm not going to say it in the way that like, you know, I'm not downing anybody. I'm not saying I'm better than anybody, but this is a competition. Once you do this full time, you're in the NBA, and the NBA is a competition. And like the thing about the NBA that separate in pro leagues, period, is nobody cares about your age. You're in the NBA. They don't care that you're brand new. You're competing against LeBron now. You don't have a choice.
Come on.
You don't have a choice. You're in here now. Everybody is getting paid to make content. And if somebody's doing the same thing as you, but better, you're going to lose that competition. So focus on making every single video as great as you can possibly make it, while also separating yourself by putting yourself in your content. As you mentioned, I'm the brand. It's not about deep dives. It's not about the videos. It's about people liking me as a person. That's what gets people to follow you. That's what gets people to go the extra mile and be Patreon subscribers and things like that. They have to like you, man. Like they have to like you. It's really that simple. So don't overthink it. Write tight scripts, but like put your personal stories in there. Put your anecdotes in there. Be a person, not a YouTube channel. Whenever people say I love this channel, I'm like, thank you, but you know, this is not a channel. I'm a person. I'm a person that makes art, and you like one piece of art that I've put out. That's the distinction. So, be you.
Cam James on YouTube, y'all. Be sure to check it out. Deep dive series. He's putting out a ton of amazing content. And I'm glad, brother, not only to talk to you about that transition between, you know, from daytime job to being a full-time creator, but some of the gems that you were dropping, you know, about just being you and just doing things differently, you know. And I think that's what we need in the YouTube space is for creators to kind of lean into the things that make them uniquely them. And I'm glad that you spoke on that, brother. So, hey, man, listen, again, it's been a true pleasure, man. And I appreciate you just accepting my invite.
Of
I
course.
feel like we're homies now, we're friends, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you and staying in touch, and of course following you on your journey on YouTube, my man. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me, and thanks for the invite, man. This has been fantastic.